Buydowns. Everybody's talking about buydowns. It's the buzzword right now. What is a buydown? How does it work? When would you use it? When would you not want to use it? That's what Zach and I are talking about today. So let's start with the basics. There are two different types of buydowns. There are temporary buydowns and there are permanent buydowns. Temporary buydown is when you take money and set it aside. You put it into an account, almost like an escrow account, and the lender holds it. And then they use a portion of that each month to supplement your monthly payment. So we took just a basic loan amount of $400,000 and said, well, what would that look like if someone did a 1-year buy down? Now, a 1-year buy down would take the rate down a full percent from whatever the normal rate is. We said, let's just pretend the rate's 5.5 and it drops the rate to 4.5. What would that do? Well, it would drop your payment $244 a month. So in essence, you have to set aside in a separate account $244 times 12 in that account. Then each month the lender will pull $244 out, put it with your payment, which you send in, that's going to be $244 less than the normal payment, which then makes up the full payment, and they apply it. In this case, a 1-year buy down costs you about $2,900, which is 0.733% in points. Not much. It's not even a full point to be able to put together a 1-year buy down at a 1% lower rate. Now, you can also do a 2-1 buy down. You could do a 3-2-1 buy down, which would lower it 3% the first year, 2% the second year, and then 1% the third year. And then after that, the remaining 27 years, it goes back to the normal interest rate. Those get pretty expensive, though. So we just did a 2-1 buy down to say, well, what would happen if we dropped that rate to 3.5 the first year, then 4.5 the second year, and then it went back to 5.5 for the remaining 28 years. In that case, you'd have to set aside about $8,600 to temporarily buy that rate down. That's about 2.16 points of the loan amount. And it really helps people ease into their payment, because maybe you know that you've got some raises coming in the future or a promotion or something like that. Doing a 2-1 buy down helps you ease into a payment that's a little higher than maybe what you were expecting to go buy a home. The cool thing about a temporary buy down is it does not have a break even. When you take that money and give it to the lender, let's say that 6 months from now the rates drop and you want to refinance, you haven't lost anything, because all that money's yours. It's just sitting in the account, and whatever you don't use, when you refinance, the lender has to give back to you, which is really cool. Zach, will you talk about permanent buy downs?
Yeah, permanent buy downs, we did the same loan amount of 400,000, and typically if you buy the interest rate down about 0.25%, it costs you about 1% of the loan, or 1 point. And so we took the example of if you had a 5.5 and bought it down to 5.25, that would then lower your payment by $62.35 per month. Now, typically these have a break even, because you're paying that $4,000 up front. It'll then take you, on the specific example, 4 years to make your money back. So if you think there's a chance of moving out of that home before the 4 years hits, or refinancing this loan before the 4 years hits, typically you wouldn't want to do it. You'd say, well, look, let's take an interest rate that is possibly the 5.5%, because it doesn't make sense to pay $4,000 if we're only going to have that loan for 1 year or 2 years, because you'd end up coming out short.
Yeah, so that's perfect. The question really is, which one's the best, the temporary or the buy down, or the temporary or the permanent? What do you say, Zach?
It depends. So like right now we're looking at where interest rates are at. We're looking at what the Federal Reserve is doing. And so right now, I think that the permanent buy down doesn't make too much sense if you're having a 3 to 4 year break even, because the odds of you having this loan for probably 12 to 24 months is relatively high. Based off what we're seeing from economists and different things, odds are there's going to be a chance to refinance in late 2023 or possibly early 2024. And so with that being the case, I would personally stay away from a permanent buy down right now, because I think it'll be a sunk cost that you're not able to get that return on. Now, a temporary buy down, I think those are good to use right now. In the short term, whether you do a 2-1 buy down or a 1-year buy down, I think that it's an advantageous to use that versus the permanent.
Now, let me make a point here, because when you do a temporary buy down, you can do the exact same thing yourself by just setting that same amount of money into a savings account and then each month pulling it from your savings account, adding it to the payment you want to make, and then making the full payment. So you don't really qualify at a lower interest rate. The buy down doesn't help you qualify for more house. It just helps you with the payment because money's been set aside. Now, if you're setting that money aside yourself, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You might as well just put it in your own savings account, earn a few dollars of interest. But if the seller is willing to do it, that's where it becomes advantageous right now because a lot of sellers are willing to, they're trying to make their properties more attractive to buyers, right? And so they're offering things like, hey, we'll pay for a buy down for you. And if the seller is willing to throw $3,000 or $8,000 into an account to supplement your payment, by all means, let them do it. That's fantastic. Any final thoughts on buy down, Zach?
No, that's perfect. I mean, if we could get the seller, and right now we're seeing a lot of sellers contributing, whether they're willing to pay for the closing costs, 2-1 buy downs, different things like that. So, big key is just finding that seller that's able to do that and able to purchase those 2-1 buy downs if we want to go that direction.
Perfect. All right. If you or someone you know would like to talk in more detail about a temporary buy down, a permanent buy down, what would that look like with specific numbers, just reach out. We're more than happy to help.